Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and we are going to continue today with my DVD collection of my Japanese films. Now the first one tonight is pretty wacky and silly, and that is Cutie Honey. Now this stars Eriko Sato, who is exceptionally beautiful, and she actually did have some credible performances throughout her career as well, so I like her. In this one, she basically plays like I don't know what you would call it. She does a lot of stuff in her regular persona, like her Clark Kent persona per se. She's like an office worker, a motorcycle racer, a street musician, a police officer, and most of all, a warrior of love. And she uses her father's invention to transform herself into anyone she wants to and, fit herself with various weaponry to fight against an evil organization called Panther Claw that is kidnapping girls and stealing gold. So yeah, it's pretty dumb, but it is deceptively charming, I think, at times. It's a very colorful film. It's very cheesy. I don't know if I would necessarily want people to see me watching this like on an airplane or something. They'll think I'm just something wrong with me, but in the comfort of your own home, I think it's perfectly fine. And the director on this, actually, unbelievably, I had forgotten this, Hideaki Anno. So this is the guy who did Neon Genesis Evangelion, the anime, which going from that to this is quite a leap. He also co-directed the recent Godzilla film, the Japanese Godzilla film, which was really good. I have a review of that on my channel. So yeah, Cutie Honey, really silly film. I would say the quality of the action isn't necessarily high, so to speak, but it's creative, and it's briskly paced and kind of fun to watch. Our next set here, it's a 3-disc DVD set of a very underknown, I guess you could call it a kaiju film, or kaiju franchise, and that is Daimajin. Yes, Daimajin. So these films were released in, when were these released? Let me just get the type of years right here. Looks like the first one was from 1966. So these are from the late 60s. That's quite a while ago. And all three of these are pretty good movies. You basically have this giant stone statue that sits atop a mountaintop, and he just sits there. But after years and years pass, when the people down below get oppressed by an evildoer or a feudal lord or whatever you want to call him, the stone statue comes alive and wreaks vengeance for them. And that's basically the premise of all three films. These movies there's not a whole lot of kaiju action in them. I think I remember in the first one, he doesn't even show up till like the last 20 minutes or so, but they are good films. They focus a lot on like the drama and the character plights of the protagonists before the stone monster comes alive and saves them. So Daimajin's pretty good trilogy here. I think I enjoyed the two sequels a little bit more than the first one. I think they were slightly better paced, but all three are worth watching. So Daimajin's a good one. Now, I covered this next one in my Asian horror playlist, and it's part of the Hideshi Hino Theater of Horror, which is a very hit-or-miss film series, and that's Dead Girl Walkin'. This is the one from Koji Shiraishi. It's one of his earlier films, and it's quite creative. It's about a girl who basically rots. Like, she technically is dead, but she can still move around, and her body starts to rot away, and it shows, kind of what the negatives of such a scenario, I guess you could say. I liked it. It was good. I think one of the better ones of this Hideshi Hino horror film series. Check out my review, my mini review from 2004, I believe, in the Asian horror playlist. Now, our next two here are two of my favorite Japanese films of all time. And that is, of course, the Death Note live-action films. Now, I really think these films are actually rather underrated, if anything. I think these are two of the best, you know, if you want to assign some type of a subgenre of film to this, you could call this like a young adult, a YA film. You know, the type of YA films we get in the US are like those Maze Runner films and Twilight and all that crap. Well, this is if you compare this to all of the YA films, so to speak, in the world, these have got to be one of the best, because these really are exceptionally written films. And you have a guy who finds a supernatural notebook, and basically he can write anybody's name on it and they die. Now there's certain rules associated with using the notebook, and a genius detective is hot on his trail. So it's really kind of a supernatural cat and mouse thriller, so to speak. It's kind of a unique premise, and the script writing, as I said, is really really sharp. Really sharp. It makes you think. You know what I mean? Like, sometimes I say, in my review of Battle Royal that I did just not too long ago, I said, you like to put yourself in the situation of the film and think about what you would do, And the Death Note, I do that. Like, if I had a Death Note, how would I use it? You know what I mean? Because it's not as easy as you might think. Because people can trace your behaviors and elements and track you down, the authorities, based on various things, which I'm not going to spoil. But, just in the opening hour of this first movie, the way the authorities narrow down who this Death Note killer is just phenomenal. So, yeah, it's a must-watch. I'm definitely going to do a full-length review of both films at some point on my channel in the future. Maybe I'll do a spoiler review, too, at some point. But these are just phenomenal. I like to watch these before I go to Japan for vacation. It just gets me in the mood, you know what I mean? So this is the first one. And the second one is Death Note, The Last Name. And remember, these were directed by Shuzuki Kaneko. I just remembered his name. And he did, the fantastic Gamera trilogy from the 90s. Very good director. And these were probably two of his best films right here. You can see the gods of death. The Shinigami in these films are just hilarious. Ryuk is definitely one of the most entertaining non-human characters in motion picture history, I think. Watch them if you haven't already, I'm telling you. I think they're better than the anime, because the anime kind of goes off into a secondary storyline after a while that isn't as good as the Light versus L conflict, and it's good, but it dilutes the overall quality a bit, I think. The two live-action films are fantastic. And no, I do not have L Change the World, which is the spin-off theatrical film, which is not good. So our next film here I already covered in my Asian horror playlist. That is Death Train from the Hideshi Hino Theater of Horror. Unlike Dead Girl Walking, this one is not good, so you could skip it. I'm not even going to tell you what it's about. It's about a train, and there's death on it. And you can check out my mini review in my 2004 Asian horror video, probably in part 1 of that video, since this is a pretty bad film, for my reasoning as to why you should just skip it. Now our next film here is one that I'm a little disappointed in, not in terms of the film itself, but the fact that this was originally planned to be a full trilogy of 3 films. They made the first one, they didn't bother making the other 2. And this one was released back in 2007, so I think it's pretty safe to say they're not going to bother. And that is Dororo. Yes, Dororo. Now you got some good actors in this. You have Satoshi Sumabuki. I hope I'm getting these actors' names right, because some of these DVDs don't have the names on them, and I'm just going off of memory. So if I make a mistake, don't kill me. And Koshi Bazaki. And they're both very good. I always watch, Sumabuki's grown on me over the years. I get excited anytime he shows up in a film now. I've always been a fan of Ko. Ever since she played the psycho chick in Battle Royal, I've been a huge fan of hers. And this one, it's about, let me get my notes out for this one. Dororo. A warrior and his cute sidekick embark on a journey to kill 48 demons. It's kind of a buddy action horror movie. Shibazaki, in particular, really cuts loose with her character. she does, she kind of mugs it out a little bit, but in a good way. She really cuts loose. I really like that about this movie, is that, she's very lively in her performance. The action is pretty good. It's pretty creative in terms of what type of demons they're fighting. And it ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. It does resolve some things, if I remember correctly, but it sets up for 2 sequels, and they just never bothered to make them. But the first one is good enough for sure to watch. It's a good flick. Check out Dororo if you haven't already. Alright, we got 2 Ozu films coming up here. One that is very highly acclaimed, and for good reason, is Early Spring. Now this, I believe, is a Criterion, one of the handful of Criterion releases I have in my collection. In his first film after the commercial and critical success of Tokyo Story, Yasujiro Ozu examines life in post-war Japan through the eyes of a young salaryman dissatisfied with career and marriage who begins an affair with a flirtatious co-worker. So this, like a lot of Ozu's films, really is quite excellent in terms of its overall quality. He's a very good director. He always gets good performances by his actors and actresses. And this is one that's, as I said, very highly acclaimed. I think the lead actress in this was pretty pithy. I think she liked to talk back to the elders quite a bit, which in this setting is pretty entertaining to watch. But it's a very good quality film. This is one of the first ones you should probably watch from Ozu's filmography. And as I said in a previous video, I will do a best of Ozu video at some point in the future. And one of the films that will probably will definitely make that list is this one, Early Summer. Now this one I think is like the second or third film of his that I saw. The first film I saw was Tokyo Story. And then I watched Early Summer soon after, and I think this I might like even more than Tokyo Story. The Mamiya family is seeking a husband for their daughter, Noriko, but she has ideas of her own, played by the extraordinary, yes, she is extraordinary, Setsuko Hara. Noriko impulsively chooses her childhood friend, at once fulfilling her family's desires while tearing them apart. A seemingly simple story, this is one of Ozu's most complex works. A nuanced examination of life's changes across 3 generations. So yeah, Setsuko Hara, again, if I were to make a list of like my top 10 favorite Japanese actresses, she would be up there. She has like this, I can't even explain it. She has a certain screen presence about her that just really works. She just has it, so to speak. And Early Summer, I think, was slightly lighter than Tokyo Story, if I remember correctly, which is why I might prefer it slightly more. It's just more purely entertaining in a certain sense. But yes, another one from Ozu that you probably have to watch. You really should. Now, ironically, I actually do not have Tokyo Story in my DVD collection, which is kind of ridiculous. I'm not sure why when I was looking through. Probably because it's so widely available, although a lot of his films are widely available, so it's really not much of an excuse. But I plan to rectify that problem in the near future. I'll buy a copy of Tokyo Story soon. One criticism of Ozu is that a lot of his films are similar in style and theme. That's true to a certain extent, although there are a handful of his films that are quite different that people don't usually bring up. But, it's not really a problem as long as you don't do like a huge marathon of like 10 of his films in over like 3 days. Because then it might get a little bit repetitive. But if you mix in an Ozu film, every once in a while, it's just a great experience, man. He's a really good director. Oh boy. This is a bad blind buy. From last October, I wanted to watch a few more Japanese horror films, and I got this one, I think off of Yes Asia. Easter Nightmare. I mean, come on. I was hoping for, a guy in a bunny rabbit suit, an Easter bunny suit, killing people. That's kind of what you get, but it's executed in the worst way possible. There's not a lot of of death scenes in this. In fact, none of them are memorable. And there's a lot of dull filler, so I'll get to this later in my Asian horror playlist. You don't need to know about it. It's not worth watching. One film that I did cover in my Asian horror playlist that is worth watching and was a good blind buy is Egg. Very oddball film. Kind of a horror comedy. Some fantastic visuals despite the low budget. A woman basically has hallucinations of an egg that's somewhere inside of her body, apparently, and it starts to hatch, and bad stuff happens. So yeah, I covered this, I can't remember what year, maybe 2002 or 2005, somewhere around there. Check out my mini review. This is a cool movie, though. Hard to find with subtitles, though. Then we have a trilogy of horror films that, of course, I've covered already. That's the Eko Eko Azarak Wizard of Darkness trilogy. Now, as I mentioned before, this has a little bit of witchcraft in it. Not as much as I was hoping. All three films, actually. Actually, the third film has the most witchcraft, and it's the one that gets trashed the most online. But it's the one I actually like the most. The first one's pretty good. There was a gratuitous sex scene thrown in here for no good reason, but, just a word of warning. Check out my reviews in my playlist. It's got some pretty cool stuff, though. I do like this trilogy. The second one, maybe not so much, but the first and the third I do enjoy. And I'll show you those artworks on the DVD case now. You have Birth of a Wizard here, the second installment, which it's almost kind of like a rip-off of the Terminator, I thought. Which could be a lot of fun if you chuck in schoolgirl witchcraft. But again, not enough witchcraft for my liking. Every few years, like every 3 or 4 years, I think, man, you know what, I'm going to rewatch this because it's has such great opportunity to be entertaining. And it just always, it just never comes through, And then the third one, Misa, the Dark Angel. This is the one that's like real dreamy and atmospheric, but nobody likes because it moves as slow as molasses and doesn't make a whole lot of sense, which is, understandable. But I liked it. I liked the aesthetics and the mood. Yep, it's pretty good trilogy, I think. Now, there was another one. Actually, there was a few more Eko Eko Azarak films that were, kind of on, they've been released on bootleg and on streaming sites that weren't very good. But then they came out with another one in the that was released in the United States, Eko Eko Azarak, the first episode of Misa Kuroi, which is, I don't know, I wouldn't really call it a prequel. It's just like a separate spin-off story. And I'm going to cover this in my Asian horror playlist very soon. I think this was a 2011 film. And I think this got the series back on track a little bit, although I haven't heard of too many other films in this franchise being released in recent years. But this one's pretty good. Kind of cheesy. Low budget, but it's, if you're in the mood for something not too demanding, it's a pretty decent few hours of movie enjoyability. And I think we got 2 more Ozu films. I'm starting to rack up. I got a pretty good Ozu collection, I think. I'm kind of lacking in some of the other classic directors for some reason, but Ozu gets a lot of treatment. I think it's because, he was the first classic director from Japan I really got into. And, I just racked up a bunch of his movies and then found a lot of the other stuff on, like, Hulu or, Netflix back in the day and watched them all online. Didn't really feel the need to buy them. This one's End of Summer. Again, you have a family is thrown into distress when the childlike father takes up with his old mistress. So this one has Setsuko Hara in it. Anything with Setsuko Hara in an Ozu film, you may as well just watch it. This is a good one. And then the next one, I have Equinox Flower. Now, both of these I thought were both pretty solid films, although I don't like both of them as much as Early Summer, Tokyo Story, or even Late Spring. So this one, Late in his career, a man becomes increasingly sympathetic with the younger generation. And it's about an old-fashioned father and his newfangled daughter. So obviously, it's another good one that you should watch. Not many Ozu films I dislike. I think his overall success percentage is like 85, 90%, I think, or something like that. It's very rare when I see an Ozu film that I just dislike. I think there's a few of them out there. I don't remember what they were off the top of my head. Alright. That's it for tonight, I think, or today. And be sure to join me in my next video, and we will continue to hammer through the Japanese film collection. I will see you next time.